Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming out for the second annual, right? Second or third already. Lit Crawl, thank you guys so much for coming out here. We're very excited to have an evening of spooky stories with you all. And our first contributor is Kimberly Derting. She's the author of award-winning The Body Finder series, the Pledge trilogy, the Taking trilogy. Her books have been translated into 15 languages, and both The Body Finder and The Pledge were a YALSA Best Fiction for Young Adults selections. She lives in the Pacific Northwest, where the gloomy weather is ideal for writing anything dark and creepy. You can find her online at kimberlyderting.com. Please welcome.
Okay, so I am reading from my short story. It's called Light It Up, and it still is retelling of a modern day retelling of Hansel and Gretel without the witch. And I'm only going to be able to read a few pages of it, so it's an abridged portion of a short story. So I drop my sleeping bag and sit down hard on the slime-covered boulder, refusing to take one more step. My legs ache, my back aches, even my shoulders ache from all the walking we've had to do. Forget it, I tell Hanson as he flashes me a reproachful glare. I recognize the look, like he thinks I got us lost on purpose. As if it's somehow my fault the GPS on the phone doesn't work all the way out here in this godforsaken forest. I'm taking a break. If you don't want to wait, then go on without me. See if I give a rat's ass. I dig in my pocket for my crushed Marlboro pack, and then I sigh as loud as I can to get my point across. I focus all my energy on extracting my very last cigarette in the whole wide world. It's bad enough, but my hands are shaking from caffeine withdrawals. I have no idea what I'm going to do when the nicotine cravings start to kick my butt too. As if it's made of glass, I settle the cigarette between my lips, and then I cram my palm into my left eye. It hasn't stopped twitching since we woke up this morning to find that our bitch of a stepmother has up and left us in the middle of the freaking woods. And now it's just the two of us out here, me and my little brother. I watch as Hanson loosens his pack, his expression softening as he lowers himself to the ground in front of me. I hate the way he looks at me, like I'm suddenly this fragile thing in need of coddling. Here, he says, unzipping his bag and handing me the dirty t-shirt he'd worn just yesterday. Yesterday, when we'd been pretending to have a good time for our dad's sake, acting like we didn't notice how weary he was from the radiation treatments that were making him sicker by the day. When we'd silently wondered why our money-grubbing stepmother had dragged him out here to camp in the first place, when he should have been home, hooked to an IV and a catheter instead. Damn it, I cursed and ripped the shirt from his hands, realizing why he'd given it to me. I wipe my eyes, no longer pretending the tears don't sting, as I clutch the cotton that still smells like campfire, smoke, and Axe body spray, the cologne Hanson practically showers in on a daily basis. I wonder if Dad even realizes what she was up to, that she abandoned us out here. I wonder if he's even noticed we're not with them. Hanson just shrugs, and I want to punch him for always being whatever when it comes to Dad, and the fact that the cancer is killing him. As if my little brother's already given up on him. This isn't a whatever kind of moment. This is a big deal. A really, really big deal. We're lost in the middle of 1,000 acres of tree-filled wasteland, abandoned in the middle of the night by our parents, the only two people in the world who even know we're still out here. Check that. Abandoned by a stepmother who's been counting the days till our father will finally bite it, and then she'll be set for life. She knows that once he's gone, she can buy whatever she wants, travel anytime she wants, and never ever have to change another disgusting pins again. And without us to share that inheritance, her gold card limit just tripled. For me at least, losing my dad will probably be harder than losing our mom was. At least when she died, she left Hanson and my dad and me together. We were still a family. What will Hanson and I be once Dad dies? Orphans. My throat tightens at the dismal feel of the world. My fingers tremble as I light my cigarette, grateful for the first time for the shitty gold-plated lighter the step-bitch gave me for my last birthday. The one with my name, Greta, engraved on the side of it. Maybe she thought she was giving me the gift of early onset emphysema. The 3 dregs, I tell myself. Only 3, and then I'll stub it out and save the rest. I have to be smart. Ration it, because that's what people do when they're lost in the wilderness. They ration their supplies. But 3 is harder than I thought it would be, and 4 is damn near impossible. By my 5th drag, I finally find the will to rub the cherry into the dirt, careful not to crush the remaining cigarette as I drop it back into the pack. We gotta get going, Hanson tells me, looking up at the sky as if he's some sort of Boy Scout who can gauge the time of day by pinpointing the sun's position. It'll be dark soon. We should probably find a place to stop for the night. No shit, Hans, but in case you haven't noticed, there's not much out here. I brushed the slimy gunk off the back of my shorts, the only clothes the bitch left me with, the ones I fell asleep in. Other than our sleeping bags and the tent we were sleeping in, she took nearly everything when she left. All I have left is that last cigarette butt and my cell phone, which is useless this far away from civilization. I assume she thought we'd starve or freeze or get eaten by wolves by nightfall, all of which could still happen. Hanson, at least, has been using his backpack as some sort of lumpy pillow and has the random assortment of crap he was keeping in there. Some dirty clothes, an iPod that's already dead, a toothbrush which I'll probably get desperate enough to share by morning, and half a can of Axe body spray. I don't know who you thought you were going to impress out here. I'd harassed him when I realized he'd packed that disgusting cologne. But it was his love of junk food that's kept us going for most of the day. And in the same way I decided to conserve my cigarette, we've decided he should ration the candy too. I didn't mean like a Holiday Inn or something, Greta. I just mean we should find a place to camp is all. Man, sometimes you're such a... He stops himself before he actually says it, somehow remembering the word is off limits in this situation. We'd made a pact when our dad first introduced us to her. Bitch was her name and hers alone. If only Dad hadn't been so lonely after Mom died. If only we'd been enough for him. You don't have to be so rude, Hanson insists, sounding whinier than any self-respecting 14-year-old should. And it reminded me of when we were little and Hanson would hold my hand whenever we'd pass the big kids at the bus stop. Sorry I'm better now, because he's right. And because it's not his fault we're lost. And because I'd rather be lost with him than out here all by myself. I'm just hungry and tired, I guess. It's enough, and Hanson grins. That's the thing about younger brothers. They're pushovers. Maybe we can split a candy bar or something, I offer, securing our truce. He pulls a Snicker bar from his bag, crumples the wrapper, and tosses it on the ground, leaving it behind for the rest of our trash as an uneco-friendly trail for anyone who might be interested in finding us, as if.
What a cool take on an old classic. I love it. Our next reader is going to be Mark Henry. He's the author of the Amanda Farrell zombie comedy series. One such was Happy Hour of the Damned, as well as a young adult horror fantasy novel, Velveteen, written under a pseudonym, and the numerous weird erotica shorts and novellas. He's been a psychotherapist, a Halloween store manager, and a 1950s-style housewife. He lives in DuPont with his wife and 3 furry monsters with a complete disregard for carpet quality. So, please welcome.
I'm perennially the housewife. That's known as. Okay, this is from a work in progress that I had frankly shelved, and then when I heard that we had like 6 minutes of reading to do, I was like, there will be nothing I can read in 6 minutes. Nothing for my stuff I'll be able to read in 6 minutes. So I pulled this out, and I'll probably have to edit it on the fly. So we'll see how it goes. If I get caught up, that means I'm editing in my head. Rez had learned to keep his mouth shut, not to talk shit, no questions, just follow along, follow directions, get by, and never talk back to Awesome, not in public, not at Dolores Creek. He didn't call the voice Awesome because it was awesome. Of course it wasn't awesome. It was because Awesome started most every conversation like so. You know what would be awesome? If you set fire to that shed, burned it straight to the damn ground. Or, you know what would be awesome? To be the world's most famous teenage serial killer. Get yourself an artistic angle. Van Gogh you some internal organs. Or, you know what would be awesome? If you stuck that straw in the end of your... Never mind. Sometimes awesome ideas were ridiculous, sometimes not. The shed had gone up like an illegal sparkler bomb. Must have been a full tank in the lawnmower. Later, Rez found hunks of metal blades sticking out of the foster home's pink siding, like rusty knives in a kid's birthday cake. The serial killer thing, just a dream, really. He climbed the bunk, vaulting up and building a curtain from his towels, stuffing the frayed ends into 2 holes he punched into the drywall ceiling. He'd earned a miniature flashlight for his chores and pulled up the sheet and dug it from the slit he'd made in the vinyl mattress ticking, his secret stash. Toothpaste, some floss he never used, a curled-up paperback copy of Salem's Lot, a gift from Joe Nettie. He grabbed his book from the hole, too, switched on the flashlight, and flickered, and he shook it, slapped it against his blanketed thigh, a cheap piece of shit. Staff picked up all the reward system crap from the dollar store. Hardly none of it ever worked. Probably why none of the boys ever worked on the chores that did... This is a lovely sentence. Probably why none of the boys ever worked, and the chores that did get done were half-assed. He arced the column of light over the few pictures he had taped to the bunk area's drop ceiling. A picture of a beach, Pismo, he thought. Candy bar back when she was hot and not all wasted and screwing drug dealers. She wore a big white smile and flipped her blonde hair over one shoulder. Rez slipped his hand into the waistband of his prison pants, absently, and then pulled it back out. Taped up next to the picture of Candy was his brother, Albert, greasy and pimpled with retainers gleaming like diamonds. Albert was the anti-porn. Rez huffed and flipped to his favorite section in Salem's Lot. Ralphie Glick was scratching at his brother's window. Joe Nettie had told him Rez reminded him of Ralphie's doomed brother, Danny, blindly opening the window to let his undead brother drain him. Said that's what Rez did with trouble, just opened up to it, let it in. It wasn't true, though, not at all. You reading again, Rez? A kid whispered nearby. It was Khan, one bunk over. He wasn't sure whether that was the boy's first name or last, just that he had a head shaped like a light bulb, and there weren't any ideas going off in there to speak of. Rez guessed that was called irony. Yeah, why are you asking? The boy's voice became dark and thin, wondering if you saw them shadows creeping across the ceiling. Don't you see I got my towels in? Rez threatened. Kana ignored Rez's tone. There's 5 of them now. What are you talking about? Rez clicked off the flashlight, reached out and yanked his makeshift partition down. It took a second for his eyes to adjust, but when they did, an unfamiliar feeling stitched through his gut. He thought it might be fear. There was a first time for everything. He saw them too, from the high transoms on the far wall, beyond the chain-link fencing and halfway to the bunks. Scrawny, black echoes stretched across the rough-hewn wooden ceiling. Rez thought he could hear them scraping at the beams, like they were talons or teething, or maybe it was just the book he was reading and he was hearing things again, or Awesome had learned some new tricks. He heard them again, jerky this time, a saw blade on a knot. You know what would be awesome? If those shadows were whittling those beams into streamers, turn that room into a party. But that was ridiculous. Shadows didn't make noise. Shadows were quiet. Shadows didn't have claws or fangs. But whatever they were born of might, and Awesome might just get his party. Rez put the book down and angled up onto his elbows, glancing down the row of bunks. He saw some of the other guys jumping off the beds and climbing up their fenced cells to try for a better angle on the thin rectangles of window across the room. Joe Nettie was one of them. The fire-headed boy dangled from the top bar, one-handed, a curious look on his doughy face. Within seconds, teeming shapes of teenage felons, grumbling and shouting, blocked out the little glow from the 2 overheads in the day hall. What is it? One asked. You see anything? It's motherfucking aliens, man. It was impossible for Rez to distinguish the words amidst the clamor, but a moment later, the dorm fell into icy silence. From outside the monkey house, a high-pitched screech split the air, followed by the unmistakable scream of a man, hoarse at first. The cry rose to a shrill wail, until it was cut off, like that part of the recording was gone, long gone. Boys fell from the fence and padded back into the shadows, simpering. Some had even begun to cry, sniffling and sobbing into their sleeves and blankets. Others stood their ground, rolling up their sleeves, puffing out their chests, the tough guys, the guys that had something to lose for a show of weakness. Cigarettes, Playboys, candy. Rez bounded from his bed, stalking forward. He squinted, trying to get a better look, even as the screech tore through the night once again. He didn't see anything, not just then. But a moment later, after another man, a guard he presumed, began to shout and then to howl horrifically. Scream that was ever at him. Some desert beast or something worse. In the bottom corner of the furthest transom, 20 feet or so above the ground, the pale features of a gaunt and lifeless face appeared. It grinned, eyes wide with something, Rez guessed it was hunger, but only because he'd seen the same look in the mirror staring back at him. Dolores Creek Boys Ranch went black. On his right, Rez heard Sammy the night guard clanging around his closet office and barreling into the reform school's admin wing, into the lobby. There were more shouts from their jailers, followed by gunfire. You never heard gunfire at a juvie, ever, and more of the screeching. The boys stopped whispering and started holding their breath. Rez listened, and then he heard it. Heard what he'd expected to hear the minute he saw the ghoulish face in the window, and felt the same tinge in his gut as before, the feeling the shadows gave him. He'd call it fear for now. Long, rakish squeaks, the thing dragging its nails against the glass. You know what'd be awesome, Rez? Yeah, he spat. He'd shut the fuck up.
Next up, we have Lish McBride, author of Hold Me Closer, Necromancer. Necromancer was so Firebug and the soon-to-be released Pyromantic. So that's that March 2017, coming right up. Also a bookseller at Third Place Books and an aspiring wizard. You can find her on Twitter under the handle @Lish McBride during the few moments when she isn't working or reading. Please welcome Lish to the stage. I'm working super hard on that wizard thing. I feel like it's gonna pan out any day. I was gonna try to do something new tonight. That didn't work out, so I felt nostalgic. I'm reading from the first book, which I haven't read for a while, so we'll see how this goes. I stared at the package. The only clue I had was the brown paper and the string. Who wraps things like that anymore? And my extensive knowledge of bombs told me that since the package wasn't ticking theatrically, I could rule that out. Ramon sat on the floor, back against the wall, waiting for his coffee to brew. I untied the string, pulled the paper away, and stopped. The package felt cold, and I don't mean refrigerator frosty. The box gave me that same chilly electric feeling the man from Plumpy's did. Plumpy's is the restaurant, works out by the way. What's wrong? Even half asleep, Ramon had noticed my pause. I shook my head. Nothing, just paranoid, I think. I opened the box, then quickly dropped it and scrambled up onto the counter, making very dignified shrieking noises. Ramon stared. Frank came into the kitchen just in time to see the box bounce on its side and its contents roll lazily out. Ramon tried to back up, but he was already against the wall. Frank managed a quick hop back as Brooke's head rolled to a stop in the middle of the floor. It had been severed cleanly at the neck, making her ponytail appear longer as it trailed behind like the tail of a grotesque comet. I couldn't see any blood. In fact, the wound looked cauterized, which didn't make it any more pleasant. Nobody said a word. Nobody except Brooke. Ow! Cut it out, you guys! Her blue eyes popped open and swung around until they found me. Ugh, so not cool. Really, Sam. You don't just drop somebody's head, especially at friends. Like being stuffed into a box and bounced around for an hour wasn't bad enough. I screamed and grabbed a butter knife off the counter. I'm not sure what I planned to do with it, but in the meantime, I held it in front of me just in case Brooke suddenly grew her body back and attacked. I mean, if she could talk, what was stopping her from leaping up and gnawing piranha style on my ankles? Once a severed head talks, life's possibilities seem endless. Frank ran and hid in, I think, the bathroom. I heard some crashing noises. It sounded like stuff being knocked around in my shower anyway. Ramon slid behind the easy chair and hugged it, keeping his eyes on the head at all times. I think he'd stopped breathing. I crouched there, unmoving except for the shaking of my brandished butter knife, and stared at the head of a cute girl resting in the middle of my dirty linoleum kitchen floor. For some reason, I had the irrational thought of asking Mrs. Winalski whether or not this counted as having a girl in my apartment. Hey guys, show some chivalry here, Brooke said. This floor is cold and ugly, and it could seriously use an introduction to a broom or a mop. I closed my eyes. Had to be my imagination. There was no severed head on my floor. I opened my eyes. Brooke was still there, only now she looked disgusted with all of us. Frank ran in from the bathroom and started throwing assorted toiletries at her. Ramon continued to hug the easy chair. Frank. A small bottle of mouthwash bounced off her forehead. Brooke didn't yell, but she used that sharp tone some moms get when they mean business. Cut it out. Frank responded to the tone immediately, clutching the remaining shampoo bottle to his chest, but not throwing it. He breathed heavily instead, nostrils flaring and eyes a little wild. Stop it before you pass out, she said.
Frank stopped, but didn't let go of the shampoo bottle. Brooke turned her gaze back to me. What are you going to do with that? Perform snippets of West Side Story? I put the butter knife down. I was still freaked out with my mind, yes. But over that, lay a thin patina of shame. Sam, if you don't get off the counter and free me from this humiliation, I will gnaw your damn ankles right off. Body or no body, it was still Brooke. Only Brooke could be so bossy at a time like this. I climbed off the counter and reached down for her head, stopped to ask, you're not going to bite me, are you? In your dreams, slacker. Her lip curled. I don't know where you've been. You're probably as dirty as this floor. Then she squinted her eyes shut and yelled, now pick me up. I gently placed my hands on the side of her head, arching my palms so they didn't touch her hair. I almost dropped her again. Brooke's expression could have frosted the surface of the sun. I manned up and got a better grip, lifting her head and placing it on the counter next to the coffee maker. Sam, come on, she said, her tone full of exasperation. I am not an appliance. Look, I know this visit isn't ideal, but I've had a kind of a crappy night, so how about taking me into the living room, okay? I picked her up again, trying not to poke her in the eye, and placed her head on the plaid easy chair. Frank skittered over to a stop on the living room floor, cuddling the shampoo to his chest all the while. Ramon sat on the couch, and I took a seat on the coffee table. What, happened? I couldn't think of a gentle way to phrase it, so I just asked. Ramon threw a pillow at me. Dude, leave her alone. Let her catch her breath. You fidgeted, if she can. I'm sorry, Brooke, I don't know how to handle this. It's okay, Ramon. Frank breathed. Frank straightened up, eyes popping, but his breathing did slow down. I don't know, Sam. She shook her head and almost rocked off the chair. I rushed forward and propped her back up. Thanks. She looked around the room searching, though I'm not sure what for. 1 minute, I was watching Mosquito on Sci-Fi, which was awful and intriguing as it sounds. The next, it had gone to commercial, and I was like I am now. Frank perked up. You were killed because you watched Mosquito? He paled slightly. Oh man, I watched Mosquito. We all turned and stared at him. What? Brooke's head is sitting on your easy chair, and we're talking to it, and you're looking at me like I'm crazy? He squinted his eyes shut, huddled around the shampoo bottle. I looked back at Brooke. She was staring at my Hellboy poster like she hadn't seen it 1,000 times. Her lip was trembling. Freaky or not, severed or otherwise, Brooke was my friend. Don't call her it, Frank. I nudged him with the toe of my shoe hard. Shut up and take it like a man. She's still Brooke. You're lucky to have her, head or otherwise. I nudged him again. Now apologize. His cheeks went red. Sorry, Brooke. That's okay, she said with a sniff. The silence was awkward. So you didn't see anyone come into the house, didn't accidentally take a bunch of painkillers and then fall on a knife? I don't know, Sam. I think I felt a hand on my shoulder, but I'm not sure. Then nothing. She pushed out her lower lip and thought, well, nothing until I woke back up and I was, this. The edge of her neck appeared so clean and straight that it looked as if the rest of Brooke was hidden in my chair, like we'd cut a hole in the plaid so she could hide in there for a haunted house stunt. Brooke cleared her throat. The noise snapped me back in the moment. I had been staring like an ass. Brooke saved me from an extremely awkward pause. Sam, I'm supposed to give you a message. She stopped to puff a strand of hair out of her face, which completely blew my mind. Where did the air come from? She had no lungs. Well, I was supposed to give you a message, but Fastface said he couldn't trust me to get the stupid thing right. And I was like, well, duh. Like I'd want to do anything for you anyway. I mean, he cut off my head. Like I'm supposed to turn into his little messenger girl just because he brought my head back. I mean, I would have been all alive if the psycho hadn't killed me in the first place. Who gave you a message? She stared at me in exasperation. The guy who woke me back up. Geez, Sam, get with the program here. Brooke interrupted. I don't mean to be rude, but what message? Okay, she said, it's in the box. She kept talking to the boys, and I went and searched the empty container. Tucked into the corner was a piece of expensive-looking stationery that had been folded in half. All it said in a loose, sprawling cursive was 2 o'clock, Woodland Park Zoo, Asia exhibit. Come alone, or I'll send another message. I flipped the note over. There's no signature. Not surprising. Talk about zero manners, Brooke said. Martha Stewart would so bitch slap that guy. And it would certainly not be a good thing. Carefully, I collapsed onto the couch next to Ramon and handed him the note. I closed my eyes and leaned back, head resting against the wall. I am so screwed. Ugh, you're such a baby, Brooke said. Try being just ahead for a little bit, then you can complain.
I love that. I loved every bit of that. I also remember that I forgot to tell you a thing. We are using a specific social media hashtag for any photos and videos you might have. And is it the one for the lit crawl, or is it?
It's hashtag CreativeColloquy or creativecolloquycrawl. If you can manage that, I know it's rough, but CreativeColloquy works. That'd be great.
Rock that on social media. Up next, we have Elizabeth Beck. Elizabeth is the past life of a future ghost. Her poetry and short stories have been featured in Risk Magazine, Underneath the Juniper Tree, CreativeColloquy, Folk Horror Revival, the Laureate Listing Project, local museums, and scrawled in the steam on your bathroom mirror. Find out more by chanting her name by candlelight 3 times, or visit americanogig.wix.com/Elizabeth Beck. Welcome. A little bit of setup. And sit down. All right, so tonight I have for you Family Dinner, a mostly true ghost story. Not too far from here, up a little and to the left, is an outpost on the sea, San Juan Island. Up a little more and farther to the left lies the peaceful Roche Harbor. In the old harbor cemetery is a path that, if you choose, will take you deeper into the woods, past the Japanese grave markers of the lime workers, up to a wrought iron gate bearing the sign Afterglow Vista. Past the gate, up hewn steps, rises a structure from ancient Rome. Rosy peach columns stretch toward the complementary blue sky, and in the center of this rotunda is a family dinner table carved from stone. The structure is approached by 2 sets of stairs representing the steps within the Masonic order. The stairs on the east side of the mausoleum stand for the spiritual life of man. The winding in the path symbolizes that the future cannot be seen. The stairs were built in sets of 3, 5, and 7. This represents the 3 stages of life: youth, manhood, old age, the 5 orders of architecture: Tuscan, Doric, Ionic, Corinthian, Composite, the 5 senses, and the 7 liberal arts and sciences: grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. The center of the mausoleum boasts the round table of limestone and concrete surrounded by 6 stone and concrete chairs. The chair bases are crypts for the ashes of the family, while the whole represents their reunion after death. Oh, do sit down. You look tired and a little wet and hungry. You're just on time for dinner, and we have room for 1 more at our table. You see, we have another son, but he won't be coming. Maybe another night, but not tonight. You know how children can be. And even when they're grown, they can still be childish. John was patient with him, but such a great man can only be patient up to a point. So no, not tonight, but that's our son's loss and your gain. Here, take a seat. My husband built the Macmillan Company from the ground up, you know. Practically put this town on the map. Why, Theodore Roosevelt himself even came to stay at our hotel. All that to say, John's a hard-working man, and he's always put his family first. Isn't that right, John? So I allow him his little liberties here and there and try to accommodate his quirks. And if the children complained that he'd whipped them a little too hard for an indiscretion, I would remind them just how blessed they were to be his kin and not his workers. They are spared his full censure, his full wrath. Meal times were always important to John. It's when he gave his best lectures and scripture readings. With a voice like thunder, he could work himself up into quite a sermon. If my John does harm, he doesn't mean it. True, he required all of his employees to register Republican, and perhaps he focused a little too much on the hellfire portions of the Bible for a Methodist. And sure, some might find it odd that he wanted our remains at this table, until glory. The governess Ada is here with us as well. Her ashes are in the seat just across from me. I don't know what ugly rumors you've heard, but I'm sure the decision to end her life had nothing to do with that argument the postmaster witnessed between she and John. The children have asked to be excused from dinner, and I've always been partial to dessert myself, but we're not allowed to move on to the next course. It's almost a shame, really. But rain never falls on the Macmillan family, not even in our roofless estate. We're as happy a set of spirits as you'll ever meet. And if there are stories of phantom hands pushing people off our chairs or our table, it's only because they didn't receive a formal invitation.
unlike you. Sit and stay as long as you want. Perhaps longer. The center of his mausoleum boasts the round table of limestone and concrete, surrounded by 6 stone and concrete chairs. The chair bases are crypts for the ashes of my family, while the whole represents our reunion after death. The construction of his mausoleum began in 1930 and was completed to its present state by the spring of 1936 at a cost of approximately $30,000. He had planned to erect a bronze dome with the Maltese cross atop the edifice. John had ordered the dome, but after his death, our son Paul canceled the order. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, I'm Sarah, and I'm a musician and a sometimes storyteller, and this is the story I brought for you. The veil between worlds is very thin this time of year, and at All Hallows Eve, when it is thinner still, many a soul's been tempted to twitch aside the curtain and catch a glimpse of the other side. And so it was, from the arthritic limbs of an aging oak, 2 young boys watched and waited for the cemetery's most celebrated visitor, known as the Lady in Black. In the dead leaves below them, now and then unseen creatures scurried and screeched anonymous accusations to the night. And as minutes stretched to small eternities, the boys began to wonder if what they had been told in hissing whispers were perhaps less than sacred truths. But at long last, the church tower called out the first of 12 welcoming bells that legend said would signal her arrival, and the Lady in Black did not disappoint. Her annual procession, slow and solitary, was as inevitable as death itself. And as the boys watched her floating between the headstones in her long black gown, she looked like a captainless ship lost in a sea of fog. Just as they had been told, she held a flickering candle in one hand, and in the other, a single red rose, clutched close to her chest. It was said she had once been a beauty, and perhaps one could see shadows of that former glory in the specter that remained, but they were overshadowed by lifeless eyes, gazing out from a hollow face. Those eyes did not wander in search of her destination. They did not need to. The way was in her bones. The call of the 6th bell sailed out, and the boys held their breath in anticipation. For their position in the gnarled branches had been carefully chosen. They knew to which grave the woman's unalterable course was charted. And from here they could see without fear of being seen. For all the locals knew of her annual visitation, and they weren't alone in awaiting her arrival. No, beside the grave stood a young man, a contradiction in appearances, for his face was as graced by good looks as it was marred by its sorrowful, expectant expression. He watched the woman coming towards him, but her eyes stared straight ahead, devoid of recognition. Soon she was right beside him, though she gave him not a glance, and kneeled down upon the grave with tears streaming down both cheeks. "Don't cry, Helen, please don't cry," he said, and reached out a hand to wipe away her tears, but it passed through her face as easily as a cloud of smoke. And with the tolling of the 12th and final bell, she laid the rose upon the sod, stood and turned to go back the way she had come. He called out to her, tried to catch her hand, but he could no more touch her than the night can touch the day. And soon she was gone for another year. "Oh, Helen," he said, "I hope someday your soul finds peace. Mine has." And with that, the ghost of the young man settled back into his grave. And in the tree above, the boys waited until they were sure he was gone, sure they would not be caught spying, before they too floated down and hurried back to their mother's grave to tell her that indeed the lady in black had come. Why, she was a little older perhaps than the other ghost children had told them, but surely it was she. Well, of course it was, their mother said. The lady will always come to visit, until at last she comes to stay. And with that, she tucked them both back into their graves and kissed them on the head. And all through the night, the little ghost boys lay wondering if they would see the lady again next Hallows Eve, when the veil between worlds is thin, and many a soul's been tempted to catch a glimpse of the other side. One more itsy-bitsy, teeny-weeny little story for you. Because there's one in every antique shop, that fantastic, curious object whose powers of attraction border on the occult even before you read the little sign next to it, the sign saying, "Not for sale." And then its allure increases tenfold. You cry out against the injustice. You curse the person owning the store. Why bring it if you don't want to sell it? But then you let it go. At least, unless you find the little carved ivory castle here at Sanford and Son. Michael did. He was an orderly man in a well-tailored suit with a Panama hat and tortoiseshell glasses, and he lived a very orderly life until he found that carved ivory castle by the ornate carving of the towers and its tiny little windows. And when you peered through them, it was full of the tiniest but most carefully carved little people, dressed in clothing of every style, every era. He loved it. He had to have it, but it was not for sale. And so he came back to visit it day after day, gazing at those little faces, all the work that must have gone into it. He started offering the owner exorbitant sums, again, day after day, but still to no avail. Until finally one day his obsession grew greater than his reason, and he decided to steal it. So he looked left, and he looked right, and he took it in both hands and disappeared. Now, I don't suggest you go looking for it. In fact, I advise against it. But should you ever come across the little carved ivory castle at Sanford and Son, take a little look in the windows, won't you? And before you decide to do anything rash, look at the expression on the face of the little tiny man in the three-piece suit with the Panama hat and tortoiseshell glasses. Such beautiful work. Let's have a round of applause for them. Coming. As you know, there are a bunch of other lovely events to go check out, and if you hurry, you can catch them. But thank you guys so much for coming tonight and joining us.
And I have programs.
Program? Yes.